The president that we had hired had pulled me and Ryan aside and said, listen, I hear these talks and it sounds like they're going to be shutting the business down. You might want to prepare yourself for that. And so from that, Ryan and I started talking about what are we going to do and what's next. And for a while there, we're like, well, we're going to have to go find a job somewhere, right? Get to the next step. And while we're pondering this, Ryan, he basically looks at me and says, bro, you've got this. You can do it. Nobody else has all the information, knows everything about this company, knows the customer base and what we do and how we do it. Says you can run it.
Hello, and welcome to A Seat at the Table, Trials and Triumphs of Family Business, brought to you by the Capital Region Family Business Center, helping family businesses to grow and prosper. I'm Natalie Mariani Kling, your host and a fourth-generation family business member. I am so excited to join you around the table for real conversations about what it's like to grow up in, become a part of, and navigate the complexities of a family business. Special thanks to another family business, River City Bank, for their generous support of this program. Today we speak with Roy, Ryan, and Romika Hill of Elite Service Experts, a full-service maintenance company in the Sacramento area. We'll hear how over 20 years ago, a handyman turned being laid off into an opportunity to start a family business. We talk about the challenges of working for family, especially when you have to lay off your own children, and how the tragic passing of their father had two brothers questioning their future until the simple words, "Bro, you got this," turned loss into legacy. Well, welcome, Roy, Ryan, and Romika. Thank you so much for being here in studio.
Thank you. Thank you.
Okay, we're going to dive in because your story is so awesome, and I'm so excited to be able to tell it today. I want to start in 2000. When, Roy, you and your dad were working for a property management company in California that was headquartered out of Texas, and they bring a group of you into a boardroom and tell you that they're closing the California operations and that you all have 60 days to find a new job. And at the time, you and your wife had a child, and she was pregnant with your second, which is a very scary time to think about getting work. What did your dad do, and how did that lead to the beginning of your family business?
Well, Dad seen things differently than I did at that time. Like you said, I was young and had one on the way and one already. So I was nervous. Where's the next check can come from? Well, Dad looked at this as an opportunity. He saw that they were leaving the state and they were leaving their customers behind. They were leaving their employees behind. They weren't in any need of any of equipment. And so he negotiated out in 30 days. He negotiated the equipment purchase, pennies on the dollar. He found a financial supporter that gave him $75,000. And after his initial 30 days, he spent the next 30 days to build what was IMS, Innovative Maintenance Solutions. And essentially, all those men that sat around the table that day and were told that they had 60 days to find something else to do, they all got their last check on a Friday, and then they started working for IMS the next Monday, serving the same customers, the same buildings, doing the same services. It was a seamless change for everyone.
So that must have been pretty awesome to watch, because what a classic entrepreneurial move, an innovative move. And he hadn't never run a business before. Is that accurate?
True. Yeah. Yeah. He's been, a handyman, a maintenance guy. My grandfather was a carpenter and was on roofs at 60, 70 years old, that kind of story, those kind of stories. And so he's always been a handyman, so to speak, but he's always been a very smart man as well. So obviously.
And at the time, how many employees and how many customers was that?
May of 2000, when we just started as a maintenance company. And I think initially it was maybe around 15 technicians. I was one of those. He had a financial partner, and then he had another. He actually started with 4 partners, one silent. And then over the next couple of years, the company kind of molded into a full service. And it wasn't that he wanted to get into more services. He was actually pushed into doing more with the customers that he was already serving. So there was customers like Jeannie Reeves over at River City Bank who we did building maintenance services for. And she said, can you do our janitorial? And he said, we don't do janitorial. And she says, well, you ought to. And next thing you know, we were doing janitorial service. And same thing happened at McClellan when the base was turning from military to public. There's a lot of work being done over there on the maintenance side. And one of the managers there, and I'm drawing a blank on the name, but anyways, she had brought us in for the landscaping. We had not done landscaping before. And same thing. She wanted him to do it. He said, well, it's not really what we do. We don't even have the license for it. Well, I know somebody that you can hire that has the license and you could be doing our landscape. And so one of our first landscape accounts was 3,000 acres in McClellan. And that's how that started.
So by the time your dad had built up the business, by 2017, how many employees and how many different services did you guys have going at that time?
At that time, we were up to somewhere around 280, maybe 290 employees. We were doing janitorial, we were doing electrical, plumbing, carpentry, all your building maintenance services, HVAC, and some roofing and landscape.
And one thing you and your brother Ryan have continued on is the values of the company. And I know a lot of that has been based on the values that your dad brought in. And there's some faith values and Christian values around that. And today, if you go to your website, it's very service oriented. And there's a big focus on people and serving people and doing unto others as you would want them to do unto you. So can you tell us a little bit about, was that always the way it was? And how did your dad bring that influence into business?
Yeah, that's the way we were raised. I mean, Dad used to hold Bible studies a long time ago. He was an usher at church. He was a pastor at one point. And so that's always been an influence in our life. And coming into the business, initially, there wasn't a lot of time to think about that for him. He had to get it going, get it incorporated. He had a lot to do in a short amount of time. But over the years, he began to incorporate those faith-based messages, and he did a good job of it. Everybody was behind it.
Have your employees or your customers responded to that type of leadership? Because it is unique. And I would think as a customer or an employee of yours, that people are touched by that or moved by that or appreciate that. Has that been the experience?
Yeah, I mean, for the most part, not everybody thinks the same way, but they think in the same principle, right? And it's doing, like you said, doing unto others what you would want done to you. The way we like to phrase it is serving others the way we would want to be served. At the end of the day, that's true, I think, for everybody in any situation. If you go to a restaurant or if you go out to a movie, I mean, if you have good service or bad service, we know what the differences are and we know what we like. And so our goal is to be the best in delivering service. And that starts off our mission.
That's awesome. So your dad starts your family business and you're both a little on the younger side. And he makes it pretty clear that as family, you are not going to be given any special treatment. Did you feel like he was harder on you than the rest of the employees?
Yeah, he was harder on me than anybody. I'm sure Ryan feels the same way.
Tell us a little bit about what that looked like.
You know, it was, I guess I grew up in an era where you didn't really get a review, right? You were doing good as long as you weren't being talked to.
You were getting a paycheck.
Or you're getting a paycheck, yeah. So Dad, even though we were doing what we were supposed to do, he always wanted us to be a notch above. And so purposely, he was, guiding us to be better than what we thought we could be. At the time when you're looking at it, you're frustrated and it doesn't make sense and you don't get it. Ryan's worked different jobs. I've approached that idea and against my father's will. At the end of the day, what he did he meant well for us, right? He meant the best for us. And we do the same for our children today. So,
Ryan, how did that look for you? Tell us about your experience with that.
Well, as Roy said, Dad really tried to push us in the right direction, and we try to make the best judgments that we can. As Roy said, I went off and started working at other companies and gaining some experience, some life experience doing other things. I did ultimately end up coming back to the company and did really well at it and ultimately moved up. It was definitely a challenge. I got the same talks as Roy, but I made my own decisions and went and did my own thing. But I'm here and glad I came back.
What there never was nepotism at all in our situation. We had to earn everything that we got.
Roy, can you share your experience of when you decided to go contract your own work?
Yeah. Some time ago, we're going to maybe peg it around 2010. I was at that point, I believe I was going into more management, but I was a technician. I was a technician for a long time. And I just felt like I wasn't making the money that I should be making, and that, work was more demanding than it should, and for what I was being paid, and boohoo me, right? And so I, through friends, found out that, there's this bridge work that's happening in Benicia, and actually went and interviewed, and applied, and got the job or got an offer, and then came back, sat down in front of Dad and said, I've decided to move on, and this is what I'm going to do. I'm going to go build bridges. I was probably just going to hold flags or something. But I was going to get paid like 3 times what I was getting paid. And at the time, that was all that was on my mind. He just looked at me and he said, you can do whatever you want to do, but I think you should really consider what you're leaving behind. And just really think about it. And he didn't really go into much. He didn't say, oh, this could be yours one day or any of that. That was never a thought. And I went home and I'd slept on it and decided, the one thing I've never wanted to do is disappoint my father. And that's what I would have done if I left at that point. So I stayed. It all worked out. I probably still don't make as much money as I would have that day, but that's life.
I think most of us in a family business can probably say that.
Right.
And looking back on that, how do you think your dad handled it? And would you do the same with your sons?
Yeah, no. And to that point, I've had the privilege of having had my son working for us. And he just come in like I did, started, as a laborer and doing grunt work and all the things that nobody likes to do. And he thought he was better than that and made it known to some others that was working with us. And that just created a really bad environment. And after having to talk with him, it really didn't stop. So I one day had to call him in the office. Actually, what I did is I did at home, and I had him come to the house. It was at the end of the day. And I told him, listen, son, I got to put my boss hat on right now, and I need to talk to you. I said, things just aren't working out. I'm going to have to lay you off. You can get some unemployment. And I did it an easy way. And I said, it's just what you're creating at work is making it more challenging for me. And you need to go maybe work for some other companies, get some experience, maybe get an understanding of what life is like working for others. And maybe we could look at coming back. He took it really, really well. Obviously, it's not his fault, and it was everybody else's fault. And so then I looked at him and I tell him, well, son, I'm taking my boss hat off and I'm putting on my father's hat. I just heard you lost your job, and I'm really, really sorry about it. Is there anything I could do to help you? And that's how I handled it.
Wow. Ryan, at that time, did you try to have an uncle influence, or did you just kind of let him flounder, or what was your approach?
I let Roy do his thing. I didn't get involved. This is the decision that he had to make. So, I support him 100%. It's not to say that, he can't ever return to the company and come back and work, but it just wasn't the right time for him. And maybe he does need to go out and experience working for someone else. It's not always easy working for your family. You expect different answers when you ask questions. And those aren't always the answers you're going to get. And a lot of the times you're disappointed. So his decision to lay off his son was, his decision. And I think he made the right move. And my nephew's doing great today. So sometimes it's for the better, right? So
that's right.
Just got his HVAC contractor's license. We don't do HVAC work, so he's going in a direction and finding it out. Figuring out life.
And we're still not going to do HVAC work.
Just side note.
We're not going back there again.
Ryan, have you had to fire any of your kids?
I have, yes. My son has also worked for us, and same situation. Just probably wasn't the right time. Kids today they think differently. They think they know it all. So it was better for him to go out and do different things and experience life on his own. And the door's still open. He could still come back and give it another shot and just kind of go from there. But yes, I have had to lay off my kids as well.
When you guys look back at how your dad handled your involvement in the business, do you think that influenced how you've looked at and handled your own kids being in the business?
Absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
In 2017, you unexpectedly lose your dad. This is on a Wednesday. And instead of being able to go home and just grieve, you two have to step in and make the difficult announcements to the company. You have to figure out how to get payroll paid on Friday with no access to accounts and no visibility to cash flow. And because your dad had shouldered so much of the business and kept things very private, walk us through what those first few days looked like and how you navigated them.
Yeah. So I got the news. Ryan actually called me. It was really late at night, early in the morning, however you want to say it. I was in the Bay Area, and he had said that dad was going to the hospital, being taken to the hospital. And I never made it to the hospital in time. Yeah, that was on a Tuesday morning, I believe, really early Tuesday morning. And then that day we pretty much just stayed at mom's house and we grieved. And it was the following day, which was a Wednesday, and we had to go to work. Couldn't stop. Payroll is weekly, still is today. And Wednesday is an important day to get all the checks and everything ready so we can hand those out on Fridays. And so my dad's main right-hand persons in the business had limited access and knowledge to financial situations. And long story short, there wasn't enough cash. We didn't know where the cash was. If there was cash somewhere, we didn't know how to access it in order to put it into the account that was needed for the payroll. And I want to say that was maybe a $50,000-$60,000 payroll or better that week. So I had to get on the phone with the bank, and I had never really talked to the banks before, but I knew that we had a line of credit with one. I reached out to them and told them, this is the situation. We don't have money and I need to pay it. And they basically told me that we were maxed and that they weren't going to give us any more money. And I said, well, I don't know all of that, but I do know if you don't give us money for payroll this week, you're not going to have anybody working here, and we won't be able to, you're not going to get paid, period. Nothing. I think it was like maybe 15, 20 minutes they had money wired into our account, and we were able to move it to the proper account and get that all taken care of. But then we had to go to work. There was a lot of work to be done in a short period of time.
Well, Roy, you had said something really interesting, which was you had always, as a family member, looked at the P&Ls and thought you guys were doing great, and found out that that's really different than the balance sheet and cash flow. And so how was that realization? Because I'm sure you're not alone in that as a family member.
So yeah, as managers, we all had visibility into the P&Ls, and we all knew what the top line looked like revenue wise. We all knew that there was the direct cost and expense. We knew that there was the indirect cost and expense or overhead that supported that. And then we knew at the bottom line was the net. And this is the money that we're taking home. And that was not true at all. So the bottom line has always looked decent in the business, and I thought it was great, but really it was just, there was no cash. It was all in debt. And the bank, in my opinion, had tied Dad up in a really bad situation. where I believe it was called factoring, and he was getting loans on invoices sent to customers at like 80%. At that time, the checks from customers were being sent directly to that bank. And if they didn't receive the check within 90 days, they would claw back that 80% of that invoice. And it just really dug a hole that I don't think anybody could have got out of, and could have been part of the stress that he was dealing with.
At the time, was this all shocking to you?
Yeah, the appearance wise, I thought, everything was great and good. And so, yeah, it was very shocking to find out that financially it was a struggle. It was much harder than it appeared. And it was something that he bared 100% of. I don't think he shared it with anybody.
His choices to shoulder those burdens by himself, how has that influenced the level of transparency that you both want to have or have now in your company or between each other?
Well, as far as me and Ryan, I mean, we're fully transparent. There's certain things I think that...
To an extent, yeah.
To an extent, yeah. I think there's certain things that you want to show your employees and certain things you don't, because like me, several years back, I didn't understand what P&Ls look like. I thought I did, but I was completely wrong. So, I think you can make a mistake and show employees too much, and they think you're making all this money. You should be able to turn around and give them more bonuses. And why aren't they covering these benefits, or why aren't, they doing all of this for me? And so to an extent, I think you have to remain private. But if Ryan and I were in a financial situation that I know Dad was in, I know we would be communicating about it and figuring it out. I wouldn't just sit and hide it. And we've also got a really good team too. So we've got a good accounting manager who's got eyes on everything. And we know about purchases being made probably before purchases are being made. So we got eyes on everything.
Roy, when you're going through all of this financial situation right after your dad passes, and you have a challenging time with the bank that you were working with, what did you do to build better relationships? And how did you secure a better relationship with the bank?
Well, the bank that Dad had that crazy line of credit with was not a local bank. And I'm not sure that any bank in their right mind would have done that deal anyways. But back to the point that, no, we cut ties with that bank. We were done working with them. We paid them their money and walked away. And at the end of the day, we're looking for partnerships and relationships. And the bank that we have always banked with is River City Bank. And the relationship has been reciprocal. And that's something that we really value. And we believe that that really is true partnership. And so whenever you can team up or work together for a common goal, that's a good thing. So yes, a shout out to River City Bank.
Also, you had a really great story about one of the things you found out after your dad had passed, that he had borrowed some money from people. And there were two individuals specifically that treated that very differently. Can you share that story?
Yeah. There was one gentleman that I knew, and at the time I was fond of, and I had to call him because he was in a group with my father, and I had to let him know what had happened. And in that same conversation, and within the first few words, he said, your dad owed me a lot of money. And my response was, well, I'm sorry. I mean, how much? What do you owe you? He says he owes me $100,000. And I went, whoa. I said, well, I don't have that, but let me figure out how I can help you. And he was really adamant about, this was his nest egg pretty much, or he needed that money. There was also another individual in the same situation, but when I called him and let him know, he was just broken up. Yeah, he said, you don't owe me anything. He said, he loved my dad, and he said that we're not going to owe him anything. He's not going to take no money from us. It's squashed. It's done. Don't think about it. You guys have bigger things to worry about. to this day, he's supportive of us. And I really appreciate that relationship. That was a memorable moment I'll never forget.
Awesome. Thank you for sharing that. As you guys are diving into this and trying to figure it out and trying to keep the company afloat, Roy, you move into a president role, and you, like any person, probably have your doubts about this, right? Because you have this company that is maybe not doing as well as you think it is. And you're thinking to yourself, can I do this? And can you share the story of when you were standing on the staircase and Ryan helped you see maybe a different vision or change your mindset?
Well, if I may, maybe go back just a little bit.
Please.
We had brought in some temporary help, a president that we had brought in who helped us out actually financially and with all of his knowledge. And his job was really to figure out what the situation, state of the company was, and then find a way out of it quick. In the meantime, the company was mom's. It just goes right to mom. Mom surrounded herself with some people that were close to dad, kind of created a board, an advisory board, so to speak. And through those talks over some weeks, the president that we had hired had pulled me and Ryan aside and said, listen, I hear these talks and it sounds like they're going to be shutting the business down. You might want to prepare yourself for that. And so from that, Ryan and I started talking about what are we going to do and what's next. And for a while there, we're like, well, we're going to have to go find a job somewhere, right? Get to the next step. And while we're pondering this, Ryan, he basically looks at me and says, bro, you've got this. You can do it. Nobody else has all the information, knows everything about this company, knows the customer base and what we do and how we do it. Says, you can run it. Let's start something and let's make it happen. And so taking a chapter out of Dad's book, I looked at a situation where we might be dissolving a company and leaving a bunch of customers behind, a bunch of employees without work. And it was the perfect match for Elite Service Experts, which was a company that I turned around and created, incorporated kind of behind the scenes because I didn't know which direction everything was going to go. And basically the direction things went is we ended up getting IMS or buying IMS for $1 from my mom and assuming all of the liability and all the debt and all the skeletons and everything that might be there, because it was too early to tell what else might be popping out, insurance wise, lawsuits, who knows? But we wanted to assume all that so we could protect mom. And then mom could retire and do what mom has spent her whole life working for. Taking a chapter out of Dad's book, we looked at 2 units that we had to eliminate. The president came to us as these units, they're not making money. They're costing a whole lot of money, especially with payroll. It's just, we've got to do something. Time's of the essence. It's got to happen now. Do something, do something, do something. I mean, he was all over us. And we had the option. We could just give everybody pink slips. There's last check. And you know what? It's done. But that was not what we were about. And again, I went right to work and I found a partner who was willing to take on the HVAC agreements, willing to take on the employees, same rate of pay, same pay structures. They were going to hold the contracts, hold the agreements. The customers weren't having to fumble around to figure things out. And it was a seamless transition. Did that in probably 2 weeks. And probably within another 2 weeks, I did the same with the janitorial. Found a company who was willing to bring everybody on and take on all the work based on the current scope, based on the pricing and the structure of the contract, not change anything and just take it on. And it was a big relief for Ryan and I because we weren't laying people off. We were moving them on, but they weren't losing anything. That was super important to us at the time. And it happened to work out. So
and it took off from there.
Took off from there. Yeah.
Took off from there.
Ryan, do you remember that moment?
I do. Yes. Very, very clearly. There was a lot of uncertainty. That's for sure. Roy was nervous. I was nervous. just because we were starting a rebrand from a company that was struggling. When you do that, you're still struggling. I mean, there's still no money there. We had to really scale back. When we scaled back, we just wanted to focus on what we were good at, which was our facility maintenance, our lighting, our electrical, our plumbing, our landscape. And we had about somewhere around 40, 45 employees when we scaled all the way back. So, I mean, that's a huge scale back from over 250, down to about 45. So that really helped out. In transitioning over to Elite, Roy was really good at getting in front of all of our customers, letting them know what was going on, that we're going to continue doing business. It's the same company, same employees. Nothing's changing other than some of our services. And for them really not to worry that, we got this and we're going to take care of them. And that really helped out a lot. We retained all of our customers, And the feedback was really great. They thought it was awesome what we were doing. They supported us, which is really good. And so it just kind of took off from there. Overnight, it was crazy.
Yeah. Dad had the hindsight of looking at planning the future, right? Succession planning.
Foresight.
Foresight, yes. Succession planning. And that saved everything. So there was succession planning, which included some life insurance. And through that life insurance, almost dollar for dollar, it took care of all the debt. And so we were able to eliminate all the debt, pay all the banks, pay all the lenders, and not have anything owed to anybody. And we had just a little bit of cash left over that helped us move forward with Elite. And yeah, everybody was on board when we did that. So we marketed it to the employees as a rebranding of the company. I mean, behind the scenes, paperwork wise, legal wise, it was really one company being merged with another and then dissolving the first entity. But with the team, we are just moving from rebranding. We are renewing who we are and what we're doing. And through that rebranding, we wanted to focus on our mission, our core values, a lot of which was instilled originally by Dad. And then part of that was the creation of the logo. In creating our logo, you'll see a bird or a phoenix. Most people don't know what it looks like, but it's a phoenix. And that phoenix is there to represent his legacy. So everybody that works with us carries around a symbol of his legacy that's going to continue and move on forever.
Romika, you're watching your husband and your brother-in-law go through this and working crazy hours and trying to keep this thing going. How was that from your perspective?
I'm very proud to be a part of it. When I hear the story, I get emotional because they've done such an amazing job. And if anybody that knew Dad, I was fortunate to know Dad. Sorry. He was an amazing man. And I see him through them. And it's just amazing to be able to share that with people and also know that they did it. And I know he's looking up above, watching over them and knowing that he's so proud of them.
Ryan and Roy, besides your wives and the business mentor that you were working with, did you feel that anyone else believed in you?
I think a lot of people did. I mean, there was definitely doubters. there was a whole advisory board of doubters.
Not the whole board.
Not the entire board.
Not the entire board.
Vast majority of them. And we overcame that 100%. Yeah, I think we're stronger for that too. So.
Very true. Yeah.
It seems like you guys have always had probably a close relationship, but how has this impacted your relationship?
We've always been brothers.
Yeah. Yeah. True that. Yeah. No, it's, yeah.
I think if anything, it's developed more trust between each other, but we've always had a good relationship.
We've always been open with each other. Yeah. I mean, doing this journey together, there was no uncertainty there. Yeah. We knew we wanted to work together. We work really well together.
Even back to, if we look at the succession planning was set to be a 60-40 split. And that didn't seem fair to me. So I did a 50-50. And so Ryan's, 100% in with me. So
Ryan, one of the things I so admire about your journey is that even as 50-50 owners, you've really honored Roy in his role as president, and you are 100% supportive. And that's hard to do as siblings. I think that's hard to do because you have to put your ego aside. But tell us your perspective on that.
Yeah. I mean, this is what Dad wanted for Roy. Not that he didn't want me to succeed as well, but this is what he wanted for him. He wanted him to take over the company. He wanted him to run the company. And I knew that wholeheartedly. I knew that. So I was on board with it. I mean, I'm the one who told him he could do it. Even when he may have probably doubted himself, and I doubted myself, but I knew he could do it. And this is what Dad wanted for him. And I stood behind that 100%. And I've never given any pushback. When he asked if I wanted to be 50-50 partner with him, I was excited. I mean, a little reluctant because, again, there was still a lot of skeletons that we didn't know that were in the closet that could have come out. And, now both of us are on the hook for anything that may come 50-50, right? So we had to put up collateral, our homes, all of that stuff to kind of keep the company going. So I knew that he could do it, was behind him 100%.
Definitely a lot of risk in running a business.
A lot more than we've ever thought.
Yeah. I would say, though, that first year, so we transitioned in June of 2018 is when we decided to make the corporate switch and merger. That first calendar year of being in business, Elite on the bottom line netted twice what IMS's best year in 20 years had been. And so it was a sign immediately that we were on the right track. We were doing the right thing.
Elite Services has had steady growth since, it sounds like.
Yeah. So we have grown year over year. And that includes top line and bottom line. We have been positive every year. I remember the first 10 years with IMS, I'd never seen a positive year. It was like, how do you keep doing that? How does it keep going on? So, yeah, it's been really, really good. And I think we're getting smarter as a business. We're using more technology to help with that. We're surrounding ourselves with really good people that we can trust, mentors and people that can guide us in the right directions, and trying to establish some lifetime relationships within the business itself to maintain a core leadership. And it's not all about that core leadership being family necessarily, although they are, because you're working with them all day, right? So that's kind of our focus this year, is to continue what we've been doing, but to really build on what does the next 10 years look like? What do we want to look like? And what do we have to do today to get there? And so this next year is going to be exciting for everybody that's a part of this company. We're going to do some really, really cool things. So I'm excited about it.
So I know you don't get a lot of time to reflect. Probably none of us do. But as you're talking through that and looking back at what you've created and where you are today, how does that feel?
It still feels nerve-wracking.
Every day.
It feels great. No, it feels really wonderful to know that we answer to ourselves, and that we've created that, and that we hold a lot of responsibility in what we do and decisions we make every day. It affects many, many people. I think we have 70 now, 70,
a little bit over 70,
around that. It's a lot of families. It's a lot of people. And so I think what I love about our philosophy and what Dad kind of promoted is that it is kind of a family environment. We've got to care. One of our core values is compassion, and it's caring for others unconditionally. You have to care for others even when you got to make the decision to maybe let somebody go. And in that compassion, it might not look like compassion to the other person, but sometimes it is.
Ryan, you had shared with me that growing up, you're kind of maybe felt like a black sheep, or, had some younger ego, that maybe drove you to different decisions. But here you are, and you and your brother together have built something that's strong and growing and supporting people. I mean, how is that for you to look at that?
No, it's very humbling. It really is. And it's taken a lot of work, but we wouldn't be able to do it without our families, our wives, our kids, the teams that we have working for us. As Roy mentioned, the family that we have working for us, families. It would be very difficult if you didn't have that type of support. Having them behind us 100%, it really makes a huge difference. As Roy said, not everyone works out, and it's hard to have those conversations with some of our teams and that work with us. And, at times you have to make a difficult decision and you might have to cut ties with them, but we still care. We're still compassionate for them. We are still always there to help them if they need it. We'll always be, behind them as well as they have been with us. So it's very humbling. It really is.
Well, Romika, I'm with you. I'm proud of you guys. I think it's an incredible story. And you took a tragedy and you embraced it, and you built something that is such a gift to your family and to so many people that you serve. It's a very touching story. I had to keep myself from crying. So
we're a very strong team together also. So, and with that, it shows it in the office also, with that support too. When people have different little struggles, they know they can go to them and they're always there for them.
It's amazing. Do you guys hope that a third generation will take it forward?
Yeah, I mean, we do. At the end of the day, we're doing this for us and our families. And then there's that ripple effect of how it affects everybody else and how others can benefit from the same thing. But yeah, we want the third and the fourth. I've got fourth generations that were just born last.
Oh my God.
Yeah.
2 of them in 1 month.
Wow.
And,
congratulations.
And so, whether maybe it's not the third, right? Maybe the third doesn't, but maybe the fourth wants to come in. And I know there's all kinds of structures with advisory boards and family boards and all those things, which we have not done. And we need to learn from the Family Business Center on, but we're trying to set up for what's right and not just perpetuating Dad's legacy, but also leaving one of our own.
Beautiful. Thank you guys so much. This is really a touching story, and I know it's going to help a lot of people because these are the kinds of struggles, especially when you have unexpected situations, and your story is just so valuable, I think, to so many. So thank you for being willing to share it. I've really enjoyed talking to you guys.
Thank you.
Well, thank you.
Thank you.